Hi, you're listening to Burn Beautiful, a podcast for women ready to step into their divine feminine leadership so they can create a life of joy, health, and impact beyond their wildest dreams. Here, you'll learn how to heal stress from the inside out, reclaim your vibrant health, and master your energy so you can lead powerfully without burning out and actually enjoy the moments that matter most in this one beautiful and precious life. I'm Nicole Whitaker, burnout and leadership coach, founder of Lead Up Health, and creator of the HERS method. Welcome. Hello and welcome to Burn Beautiful. I am so happy that you are here today because the conversation that we're going to have today, I promise, is something that will make all the difference for you when it comes to wrapping up 2025 in a way that really actually allows you to kick this new year off in the best way possible, regardless of what this year looked like for you. So I don't know about you, but for me, every time we get to this time of year, I begin just reflecting on this year naturally. Did things end up how I wanted things to end up? Where did I meet my goals? Where did I not? So for you, maybe it was an awesome year, but maybe it was a really tough one. Or maybe, which is the case for most of us, it's going to be somewhere in between. And if you're like myself and most of my clients, when you reflect, your mind might naturally go to what didn't happen this year, right? Where didn't I meet my goals? Where are those health habits that I promised but slipped up on? Where were those times where I promised myself I'd do something? I promised myself I wouldn't yell as much with my kids or I'd be more present, but I wasn't. And that's totally normal, by the way. Our minds are actually designed to have what's called a negativity bias. It's a survival thing. We're designed to hyper focus on the negative. It keeps us safe. But of course, that's an incomplete picture. Or perhaps if you are an ambitious go-getter, like I'm sure you are, you might already be thinking about next year, planning how are you going to work harder? How are you going to be more disciplined? How are you going to show up better as a leader, a mom, a partner, right? Because you're wired to keep going and skip through this whole reflection thing, right? Or maybe quite honestly, you are in survival mode and you're just trying to get through this year. And thinking about setting goals for next year, quite frankly, sounds exhausting. And that's fine too. But if you've ever been a part of an effective strategy meeting, it always begins by looking backward to determine what is the current state, right? What is the data? What are the facts openly and honestly, without judgment? And then looking at, okay, what's underneath this? What are some of the root causes? What are some areas for growth? And also, what are some bright spots we can learn from? What are strengths and things that are going well that we can build from? So today, we're going to do just that. This episode is going to gently guide you through a reflection that'll really help you to compassionately reflect on all aspects of this past year in a way that feels zero pressure. It's really going to give you a chance to breathe a sigh of relief and is going to set you up for next year. So, no matter what this year looked like for you, maybe especially if this year was a doozy, like it was for me, this episode is for you. And you're going to leave realizing you are exactly where you need to be and you're doing a great job. So, I want to frame today's conversation with a few mindset shifts that I want to offer. And the very first is about shifting the story around the events that happened this year, especially in the areas where you didn't meet your goals or things just didn't turn out how you had hoped that they would. So, as a reminder, your perception, the lens with which you see things, shapes how you experience the world. And so, what I mean by that is your reflection on this past year, it's not just facts. It's going to be tinted by the lens with which you're viewing those events or those facts through. And typically, that lens comes from how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about others based on experiences that were hardwired into us as a kid, right? It's the lens with which we view the world. So I'm going to illustrate a quick example here. So say there's a woman A and woman B, and both of them happen to have gained 10 pounds this year. Women's A perception of this fact, the fact being 10 pounds were gained, or the story that she's telling herself might be, oh, I've let myself go. This is proof I can't keep up. I should have had more discipline. Now, let's look at woman B, and her story about the 10 pounds might be, my body is communicating with me. I wonder what's going on. Have I been more stressed? Am I not getting enough sleep? Could it be my hormones? Right. So in both instances, it's the same 10 pounds, but the first one is going to create a self blame spiral. But the second one, actually, it just becomes information that can help her get at the root and can lead to greater alignment. A quick professional example might be same fact. Both women didn't meet their KPIs or their key performance indicators this year, right, at their performance review. And so, woman A, maybe that negative story could be, oh, I dropped the ball. My boss probably thinks I'm slipping. I need to prove myself. Well, that might lead to things like overworking to compensate, late nights skipping meals, saying yes to everything to rebuild credibility. Her confidence might drop. Same miss KPI, but it could trigger this burnout cycle. Whereas if we look at woman B, a positive in her story might be these KPIs were really ambitious this year. I was new to my role, so it makes sense I didn't hit them all. I wonder what competencies I can work on and what support I can get to improve. And so, again, the facts are the same missed KPI, but this story is going to lead to greater clarity, boundaries, and leadership. It's a completely different emotional reality. And this is why reflecting on your year with honesty and compassion matters so much. It's going to set you up differently for that next year. So, if there's an area of your life where you've been beating yourself up about a bit, try to shift it to get curious about the lens with which you're looking at it. Try to separate or parse out the fact from your interpretation of the fact. There's likely a story in there that you've been telling yourself that is simply just that. It's just a story or just a lens. And it's a chance to really reclaim your power simply by removing that false story and rewriting a more powerful one. The second shift is really shifting from a place of judgment to a place of compassion when we're looking at those rough spots this past year. So, there is one phrase that I think will change how women relate to themselves to offer more compassion. And it's this: oh, that makes sense. Right? Instead of I should have known better, I didn't do enough, why can't I get it together? Everyone else can handle it. What's wrong with me, right? It's oh, that makes sense. So going back to the 10-pound example, I might say, oh, it makes sense that I've gained a bit of weight this year. I've been super stressed this year. And during stressful moments, it's comforting to snack. Honestly, it's the fastest way to self soothe. And even thank you for trying to keep me safe in the moment, right? Because that's all that was. That's just trying to keep us safe in the moment to help us to feel good as soon as possible. Or for the KPI thing, oh, it makes sense. I didn't meet my KPIs. I got promoted. I'm new. I had more responsibility, right? Of course, there's going to be a learning curve. So again, thinking back to any of those tricky situations that you've had, or maybe where you, in your perspective, fell short, try offering yourself a phrase like, this makes sense given the pressure I was under. That makes sense. No one taught me another way. I was doing the best I could with what I had, right? A misunderstanding with this compassion piece is that it's letting yourself or others off the hook, but the reverse is actually true because when you are compassionate, it helps you to see the honest truth. And this actually takes the pressure and self blame and any shame away to free yourself up to see what's really going on. And we know for a fact that changing from shame, it's basically impossible. But if you shift to try and change from a place of clarity, what is really happening is going to become clearer and self-love is going to enter the picture and change gets a whole lot easier. So the third shift is about shifting from goal orientation to growth orientation. Now, those of you who are all about goals, stick with me for a minute because we're likely on the same page. I think goals are great. They matter tremendously. I believe in setting them, measuring them, all of that. But we have to balance that with remembering that we are human, which means a few things. One, goals aren't the end all be all. And two, whether we meet our goals or not has absolutely nothing to do with our self worth, right? For many of us, goals or what we achieve have become entangled with our inherent worth, but that isn't the case. Three, life happens. Goals don't necessarily happen within the time frame we give them, especially not an arbitrary one like December 31st before we enter the new year. And then finally, the universe often has different plans for us than we had for ourselves, which means we might not reach those goals in our timeline, or they may pan out a lot differently than how we envisioned that they would. So rather than evaluating your year, and by default, we're really evaluating ourselves, right? On whether or not you met a certain goal with this arbitrary allotted amount of time, 365 days, why not take a wider view and look at it from who you are becoming? Because when you do this, something beautiful happens. You're going to open yourself up to seeing so much more growth, so much more good, even in the hard moments where things didn't pan out how you wanted, or in places where you might have initially decided that was a failure or you failed. Because the reality is, as humans, we're experiencing the most growth during the hard moments, right? During the dark times. And one final thing I'll offer to any of you who might feel stuck. There is this great poem that illustrates how stuck isn't actually stuck or staying in the same place after all. It's called A Hole in My Sidewalk by Portia Nelson. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can look it up if you'd like. It starts out talking about someone who's walking down the street and falls into this hole. And then she gets herself out and she walks on the same sidewalk again. And here's a little excerpt from it. Chapter 2. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it's not my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit, but my eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault, and I get out immediately. And it goes on to talk about how the next time she walks around it, then she helps someone out, and then she goes down a different sidewalk. It's a rather imperfect analogy, but the point is that even if this year we found ourselves stuck, I know I did, or back in the same place, it doesn't actually mean we're really in the same place. And most importantly, it does not mean you should be further along. You are right where you are meant to be because our lessons don't unfold linearly, right? It's more of this spiral thing. And you want to offer yourself this grace to loop back to some of these lessons that you're still unlearning or learning. So the power move here isn't feeling guilty for being stuck or anything like that. It is actually offering yourself grace and presence to allow yourself to be right where you are, to not push through it or not wish that you were further along. And so once you see your year through the lens of evolution, you can do something that most of us skip entirely, which is you're going to start mining for the good and combating those false expectations that you're supposed to be perfect and combating that negativity bias. So, in sum, when you understand the story you've been telling yourself and separate that from the actual event or the fact, when you are able to step away from the goals enough to recognize growth as well, and when you're able to meet yourself with compassion and not judgment, you are going to have a much clearer and empowering reflection on this past year, regardless of how tough it was, regardless of whether or not you met your goals. And this is your first step to set yourself up for a really great 2026. So now we're going to apply those core principles to help you rewrite a more empowering and a truer version of your 2025 story. And I had to do this myself. I am most certainly not exempt from these patterns or this work. And I'm going to take you through this process one simple question at a time. And I'm going to share what my reframe was so that you can then do your reframe right along with me. And so, if you want to do this with a journal or if you want to pause this podcast and speak into a voice memo, I really encourage that. The first question is simply, what's the story you've been telling yourself about this year so far? This is an easy one because it's the old story. It's going to come to you fast. It's whatever you've been ruminating about when you've been thinking about this year, right? It's been rolling around in your mind. What do you wish would have been different, etc. My initial story of this year was honestly, it kind of sucked. I started off thinking this is going to be the year 2025. But honestly, I did not meet my income goals in my business. It felt like a personal failure. As a result, we experienced some major financial stress at home. It was not easy. And that strain showed up in our marriage. We had our 10-year anniversary, and honestly, it was is rough. Yes, I was the woman who gained 10 pounds this year, which left me feeling not great about myself. So all of this is true. And this is the part that it's just been rolling around in my brain probably for the past month until I shifted my perspective and rewrote my story. So if you want to pause, just make note. What is the story you've told yourself so far? And as always, it's helpful to just kind of feel, where do you feel that in your body, right? Because our stress lives in our body. These stories live in our body. So the second question is where we're going to begin to expand our story of this past year, because often that first version is overly focused on the negative. And also, it's often narrowly focused just on a few aspects of our life. So the new question is, what actually happened in four key buckets of your life? Those four key buckets being health, your work doesn't have to be a career, play, and love. And as you reflect, I want you to work on separating out what happened from maybe some of those inaccurate or negative stories about what happened. And remember to mine for the good. So if you're struggling to remember the good stuff, I recommend you pull out your phone and scroll through your pictures. And if you're a numbers person, I'd also offer, and I'm going to walk you through each of these categories. As I talk about each category, you can give yourself a, 0 to 4 star score. The goal is not, by the way, to get 4 stars in all these areas, but to help you get clear on where are you actually solid and which areas of your life do you want to maybe put a little bit more focus on for the new year. So, starting with health, right? What actually happened for you health wise this year? And when I say health, I want to expand the definition to we're talking about mind, body, and soul. So, for example, when I really thought about my health beyond the 10 pounds, I realized, oh, wait, I started a meditation practice and I have significantly lowered my stress levels due to that and my change in my career. And I am finally sleeping without sleep medication, which I've been an insomniac for like 5 years. So that is huge. I've also been stronger, lifting heavier. So for me, this is actually a 3 out of 4 stars here. So pause, reflect. Moving on now to work. And to define work, this is not necessarily your career. You don't have to focus on your career. It's whatever you're putting out in the world beyond yourself, raising kids, volunteering, and yes, of course, your job. And so for me, when I looked at my career beyond my income, which as I shared wasn't where I wanted it to be, I have stretched and grown so much more than I have, I think, probably in my entire career life, beyond when I was a Teach for America core member, maybe. And so the finances aren't great, but my goodness, have I developed myself. And so I'm giving myself a 2 out of 4 stars here. And I'm okay with that score because this is my first year going into entrepreneurship. So the third category is love, and this is including but beyond romantic love. And when I really reflect on this, I have expanded my capacity to love this year. I have created so much more space to be present with my kids. My marriage was rough. We had a rough spot. And so, really, this is not a zero, right? This is probably 2 or 3 out of 4 stars for me. And then finally, play. These are things you do just for the fun of it. Um, and again, here I realized, oh, wait, I have made so much more space this year to have fun. Again, thanks to my career shift, we got to go to the lake multiple times this summer because I had a more flexible schedule. I have had more time to actually just have fun and play with them. So 3 to 4 stars, right? And again, depending on where you are in your life, if you are a working mom with little kids, play might for you might be a little low, and that is okay. It's not to say you want 4 out of 4 stars. Is just to give you a clear picture on these areas so you can decide for yourself, oh, I'd actually like to give a little bit more attention here. So hopefully now you have a more robust and expanded concept of this year. So the third question is, how did you evolve and what did you learn about yourself this year? Now, this isn't about sugarcoating, right? We want to keep the facts, but it is about shifting from that goal orientation to that growth orientation. And if this is hard to do, it's a great question to ask a close friend or a partner or family member because they're going to be able to, from the outside, see over time how you have grown and evolved. And this is really a place to show yourself some compassion, right? If you didn't meet a goal, reframe it as how did I grow and offer yourself that phrase. It makes sense because, use that compassion framework. And finally, use this moment to reclaim some of your power from any of those tough situations and those stories, those untrue stories you might be telling yourself around where you didn't meet your goal. So you can literally go back in time to that moment where you might have let a situation take some of your power or feelings of self worth and say, come back to your power. So here's an example for myself. Again, this year, I didn't make the money I wanted to in my business. So that was my external goal. And my skill set and my self trust has grown exponentially beyond what it ever could have had I not put myself out there. So, more specifically, I can share I had a first offer. It was called Health First Career Moms. And I put on a free webinar. I did all of this work. And guess what? Nobody bought except a dear friend whom I reimbursed. And at first, I thought it was all about me. I gave my power away, my self worth away, and be like, oh, maybe I can't cut it. This isn't for me. But the reality is that was a story, a massive story. It makes sense that I might not get customers on my first try. And honestly, I'm freaking proud of myself. I did what most people are afraid to do to put myself out there. Right. And so I'm proud of myself now for failing fast. And guess what? I am so thankful that that didn't go through because now the work that I'm doing is so much more meaningful and aligned. And so I'm going to take my power back, right? It wasn't about me. It was because I was new and learning the skills. And beyond that, it was actually a stepping stone towards where I am now. It was actually an example of my strength. And so that is how you can take a look at an experience you have, mine for the good, and take back your power, rewrite that story. The fourth question that I want you to reflect on is, how did the universe or God or your higher self or whatever fits into your belief system support you in unexpected ways? Or if you don't like that phrasing, just simply, how did things unexpectedly work out in your favor this year? This is really about combating some of that negativity bias that our brains are wired for and mining for the good. Because sometimes, especially during hard moments, the right thing is said or the right person enters your life. So, a quick example of this, about 11 years ago when my father passed, on my first day back at work, I was just, just grieving still. And I was in the elevator with someone who I worked with. I didn't really know him, but somehow my father's passing came up and he just said the most simple thing. He really got it. He shared that his father had passed as well. And honestly, that is all I needed in the moment was someone who understood, who I felt understood what it felt like to feel the way I was feeling. And, he didn't try to comfort me or anything. And so in my mind, during that rough time, that was a gift from the universe. Somehow that interaction happened and gave me just what I needed when I needed it the most. Another way to look at this is if something didn't pan out the way you wanted it to, but something unexpectedly good came out of it. So think about something this year that maybe didn't fall into place. It didn't meet your expectations. It didn't happen the way you wanted it to. So a lot of times we can feel like we failed something or the universe had failed us or, our manifestation process didn't work because we didn't get what we asked for in the way that we wanted it or within the timeline we wanted it. So, an example for me this year was I joined a business program. I was telling everybody it felt like it was crazy how things fell into place and I found it. It was like, it felt like destiny, right? Like the universe talking to me. And I really was like, this is it. This is the way I'm going to build my business and the way I'm going to meet these outlandishly ambitious goals that I set for myself this year. But guess what? The program did not do much for my business yet. But here's what it did do. I was completely transformed in my personal life. I found a community of like minded people. I met my now incredible coach that has just really helped me develop as a person. And I have had some of the most profound spiritual experiences I've ever had, leaving me a changed person. Thanks to this program. So at face value, I might have said like, "Oh, the universe failed me," right? But the reality is the universe had something different and dare I say better and more important planned for me and my evolution this year. And guess what? It's not over, right? Just because it's the end of the year doesn't mean that this wasn't the way. So, what's important to note here is that the universe, again, or whatever your belief system is, it's far more interested in your soul's evolution than in your goals in this 3D world. It's definitely not interested in your timeline, that's for sure. So, the more that you can believe and step into this belief that everything is unfolding for you in the perfect time space sequence, the more you're going to be able to enter into this flow and trust rather than stress and self blame, even when things don't pan out exactly how you originally planned them to. So, again, that question is how did the universe support you in unexpected ways this year? Or how did things just unexpectedly work in your favor? What were some of those glimmers throughout this past year? And so, the final question that I'll offer is where you're going to bring it all together, which is what is the more compassionate, more complete, and truer story you can tell yourself about this year? So, this bringing it together is key because once you rewrite this, and it doesn't have to be long, it can be 5 to 10 sentences, it can be in your journal, it can be via a voice memo, but you do want to put it down. Once you do this, take this action. This is when any rumination, any shame, any guilt is going to soften, and you are going to feel more powerful, more capable, and more ready for 2026. So, you heard my initial version of my story, what had been rolling around in my mind about how this year basically sucked. Here is my revised reflection that is truer and more empowering. This year, I did gain some weight, but I have lifting heavier and I'm stronger than I've ever been. I have built a meditation practice that has genuinely rewired my stress patterns. My sleep is so much more improved. And honestly, this has been a great opportunity for me to relearn and re remember that my outer appearance has nothing to do with my worth. Financially, it has been really stressful and it makes sense, right? I've started a business and it makes sense that that's been tough. And also, I am so thankful for my husband's support and my financial success in the past. And also that these unexpected income streams have opened up so that I have been able to step away from a job that wasn't healthy for me. It didn't fit the lifestyle I wanted to lead, and into a job that is much more aligned with my gifts and the lifestyle that I want. I have been more present and regulated with my children than I've ever been. And while my marriage has gone through a rough patch, it makes sense, right? It makes sense given that there were some financial stressors and the amount of change I've gone through. And it's really shed light on where I want to do more healing and how much I really do love my husband. And so this past year has been among the hardest, but it has also been a top year for personal and spiritual growth, a year where I have stepped into more courage and uncovered more strength than I knew that I had. And overall, I'm freaking proud of myself and I'm thankful for every minute. So I wanted to share that example of my reframe because I wanted you to notice a few things about it that you can apply to your reframe, which is first of all, the events didn't change. The facts stayed the same, right? There was financial stress, there was the weight gain, the marriage challenges. What shifted was the story that I was telling myself about those events. It went from a very disempowering story to one of compassion and empowerment that is honestly more true. It is truer. It's about evolution, my strength, my healing. It's about being guided. And it just requires a little bit more compassion, an empowered version of the truth. So I really encourage you to take the time to do this, to pause, to breathe, reflect, and put it to pen or to voice memo, somehow capture this revised, empowered version of your 2025 reflection. And as you preview it, I want you to check for a few things. Did you touch all the categories of your life? Health, work, love, play. Have you separated the events from your interpretation of those events? And have you taken your power back from any of those false or disempowering stories you might have been telling yourself around the events? Have you identified how you've evolved and grown? Have you mined for the good? And for those rough parts, so important, have you offered yourself some self compassion, some love, like, oof, that was tough. And it makes sense. It makes sense you would feel that way. So, as we wrap up today, and you can do this part in your head right now, I want to offer you the opportunity to fill in the blanks to this sentence frame, which is the story I was telling myself about 2025 was, but the truth, the fuller, kinder, wiser version is, and fill in the blank. And as you do that, just as importantly, I want you to feel the differences between those two stories in your body. The stress and the false stories are going to live there. So, what you've done for yourself through this reflection process is actually released and removed some of that stress that has been stuck in your body. Notice if when you say the second, more accurate version of your story, if you feel lighter, where you feel lighter, right? And really breathe into some of those places where you feel tightness to encourage that stress to release. And just remember that you are in the middle of your journey, right? You're not at the end. Doesn't matter that this arbitrary time has changed from 2025 to 2026. You are right where you are supposed to be, and you are doing a great job. You are not behind. You are in the process of becoming. And I am so proud of you for doing this work. And I can't wait to walk into 2026 with you. And for those of you who want support reflecting on this year and shifting into a healthier, happier you for 2026 in a more personalized way, I am offering a free Release the Mom Guilt, Get Out of Survival and Feel Healthy and Energized Again breakthrough planning call. So you will get clear on the impact that you want to make at work and at home. You're going to uncover hidden patterns that are keeping you in survival mode, barely getting through every day and wondering where the time went, and discovering why these patterns might be so hard to break. You're going to explore what it really takes to be a present mom and still have a meaningful impact at work without sacrificing your success. You're going to learn how to prioritize your well being in a practical way so you can have room to breathe, even if you feel like you have zero time. And you're going to walk away with a personalized action plan and clear next steps to move forward with. So, if that's something that you want to engage in, it is a free 15-minute one-on-one coaching call, and you can sign up for yours at www.leaduphealth.com. Until we meet again, burn beautiful loves. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this episode sparked something in you, subscribe, and I'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to rate and review the show. It is the most powerful way to help other women find it. And if you know someone who is struggling or on the edge of burnout or simply wants to lead from wholeness, send this their way. Let's grow this movement together. To get exclusive insights, tools, and behind-the-scenes support, join the Hers Insider list at www.leaduphealth.com. And if you're ready to explore working together, whether through coaching or consulting, you can book a free consultation right from the site. Until next time, burn beautiful loves.